Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
How
Good
is
morning.
how is the crew?
Howdy, howdy.
Now, was it Thursday already? Wow, that just went by.
I know, it goes quick, doesn't it?
It sure
We were
has.
just talking about how the first week of June's almost over. Summers just fly by.
Yes, very, very crazy.
There's
All
Patrick.
right,
Okay. Well,
want to get going?
yeah, why not?
Why not?
Okay, well, we look to be up just a little bit to flat this morning. 10 years down just a bit. Um, just kind of waiting. They say the European Central Bank lowered interest rates a quarter of a point. I don't know if that's the seventh in a row. The U.S. still remains. It's really strange because the Fed seems to not want to do it. Uh, we had some job reports yesterday from ADP, and their non-farm payroll rose by only 37,000 jobs. There was expected 111,000. Um, and it's really strange that right before the election, the Fed lowered our interest rates by 50 basis points, because it was so urgent. And now, they just remain where they are. Uh, so whether it's political or not, I don't know, but sure seems like it to me. But all the other major banks have lowered, Canada, Europe, but the U.S. remains steadfast. But doesn't seem to be hurting our markets, as we're, the S&P's bumping up against 6,000 again. So, um, maybe we don't need them lowered. I don't know. Um, Earnings today, we got Broadcom and Lululemon gonna do earnings. We also have initial jobless claims, and we could get a little bit of flatness just waiting for tomorrow's jobs reports and unemployment and see what happens. That's a big deal. ADM, which is the private sector jobs report, like I said yesterday, was only 37,000. So again, um, we'll see. It's been kind of flat. We can look at some charts and see. And let me get to those. If I can pull my screen up. There we go. All right. Let's share our screen. Okay. SPY again, we're just kind of sideways going. We're still above the 200. We're above the 9. We're kind of 3 days kind of moving up. We're going to open about where we closed. Bollinger Bands are still on the top side flat and the bottom side's converging. We have, again, resistance level above. On the SPY, we still have a gap, seems pretty much as yesterday, flattened out oscillators. Just kind of waiting, for some type of a catalyst again on the SPY, S&P. Again, this matches all the Mag 7s, which are on the SPY and the Qs. Dow Jones went right up again to resistance and stopped, and we're going to open up just a little bit below. Here we've got the 200 is moving up towards resistance, and we're right in here. We're squeezing right in between. So again, the upper Bollinger Band coming down, the lower is coming up, and again, it's sideways movement, flattened out, same as what we saw in the SPY. And then Qs are above the 200. And when you're an investor, if you're going to use the 200-day moving average like Paul Tudor Jones does, you would have gotten in as it went above the 200, and you'd be kind of up to sideways in your right now. Same on the weekly charts. A lot of people use the 50-week chart or moving average to invest, and that's above that also. So, Paul Tudor Jones, if you were following him and you got out, when it dropped under the 200 and you got back in, you go back and see where it got out. So yeah, I mean, basically on this big drag down, Paul Tudor Jones would have got you out, pretty much right here at 48.20. Then you would have gotten back in up here at 491. You would have missed all that opportunity cost. You could put your money in a CD or a treasury bill and then got back in. And that's how that works, for a long term. If you're using, the 200 as a as a line in the sand for investments longer term on these uh, indexes. So somebody asked about that yesterday, and I just wanted to kind of come back and hit on that a little bit. We look at gold. Gold's going to open up a little bit, but again, we've, sideways. Look at the Bollinger Bands are just parallel sideways pattern on gold. We keep hitting resistance. We're going to open just a little bit higher. I don't know what's going on with silver, but I noticed that today that silver looks to be opening up way up here, 32.49. At least when I looked, 20 minutes ago, maybe that's come back down, but the silver has been hitting resistance. So I'll have to see if that's still up there at that height. But silver's got a little bump today, at least 20 minutes ago it did. Bitcoin just sideways again, right at the 9. Okay. We're starting to see a little bit of a slope back up on the MACD a little bit. Bitcoin's just been sideways, and you can see we've had this resistance. We got above it, it became support, and now it's resistance again. Just kind of waiting, and we'll see what happens. The 9s come back down. We'll see if it gets above it and it starts turning back up. But again, consistency on Bitcoin is sideways pattern up, sideways pattern up, sideways pattern up. Then we went down and sideways pattern. So consolidation. We've seen this in some of our momentum stocks too, as you go sideways back within the Bollinger Bands and up. We'll talk a little bit about Bitcoin because I think Joseph had a question on it yesterday we didn't get to, and I'll get to that after we go through a couple of these charts. NVIDIA. Right up against resistance. Looks like we're going to open right below resistance again, flattish oscillators again, just kind of sideways, waiting for something to happen. Again, flattening out, Bollinger Band up here by where the sell orders are. It looks just like the S&P, looks just like the Qs. That's because these stocks are, the Mag 7s are a big part, market cap wise of these indexes. Meta. And, Meta actually popped up. So if you're looking at Meta, you're above the 200. We're starting to see a run up. You've got some resistance up here on the top. But, for the last 6 days, it was above the 9, got above the 9, and started to roll up to the upper Bollinger Band and right to where the sell orders are. So it's a nice run on Meta. Tesla, now that Elon's back in charge. Tesla came up, resistance, popped above it a little bit. Let's see what the upper Bollinger Band's doing. Oh, yeah, it's dying back down. It's coming back up. Again, looks like it's just going to be sideways on Tesla. It came down, hit support right at the 20, and that's where it closed. Went all the way up to resistance at 347.12 yesterday. So it was the full length of support to resistance on Tesla. You look at the oscillators, though, it's not looking good, for the future on Tesla. We'll see if it can break through support or it's going to bounce off support. Looks like today it's going to open up below right here. So the next level would be the 200 of support for Tesla. Oops. MSFT, Microsoft. Oops, where did he go? There we go. Microsoft is the same. It's kind of worked its way up. There's resistance right where it's going to open. There's green line right there. We've hit it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, days in a row. We've got that same pattern of the 9 coming up to resistance. And we'll see if it, does the same thing and pops down. But the oscillators are telling us it's probably going to be, declining a little bit just based on past performance and, past data. But that's what we're seeing in the MACD right here. We'll see what happens. But again, the upper Bollinger Band, starting to see them converge. Sideways pattern. Just nothing to move these guys. These are the big names in the market. Same with Google. Google went up, tested the 200, came back down under the 9. It's going to open up today, just under the 200, at least as of 20 minutes ago. I looked at it. So something happened to pop Google up. I didn't have a chance to go look at the news and see what's going with Google. Apple. Apple's just been kind of in a slow decline. We've got the 200 and the resistance way up there. we're having some problems getting past the 50, which is resistance, and we're just sideways on Apple. We are above the 9 a little bit, just flat on the oscillators. Just really kind of boring on these mag 7s. Palantir. Palantir is just playing right along the top of the resistance for the last 4 days. But look at how closely these Bollinger Bands are tightening up on Palantir. So, that's why we're seeing this sideways condensed pattern. It's going to have to break out one way or another. We're seeing a little bit of a downslope on the MACD. So again, sideways. Had a nice run up into earnings and then just sideways. It just the same look, all the way across. The one that's kind of different is Netflix has kind of kept moving right, between support and resistance. You can see the Bollingers got close here. And now we're starting to see the Bollingers diverge away from each other. You're seeing Palantir, or not Palantir, Netflix again, kind of moving up. You've got no resistance on the top, except you do have sell orders at 1265. We're going to open right about where we closed. It was at 1239. So this one's a slow mover, but it's moving up. You're seeing the Bollinger Bands expand just a little bit on Netflix. Nothing like your momentum stocks that we've been watching. Speaking of which, we talked about this one on Monday with Payman. He was asking about where to get in, and this is where we caught it when it came back down. It's just riding the upper Bollinger Band, still no resistance level. We do have some sell orders at 354.65. If you're in this and you're riding this up, always have your stops below it in case you have a dump. And then, dumps can happen. We've seen that before. Like with CLBR, it was riding up and then dumped. So you want to make sure you have your stops in case something like this happens, which is prevalent. It can happen on any stock, and it can happen on momentum stocks pretty quick. You set you're in it in the morning, and then you go out, have lunch, you come back and you see this, and hopefully you have your stops in and you've stopped it above where your cost basis is, and you end up actually making money and not losing it. That's the beauty of the stops. Let's see what else. Hershey was under our 200 list. Hershey came down, okay, but when we talked about where we got in on Monday, we set a limit down here to buy, and that's where it would have hit. We're still above the 9. You have these days where it comes down. You still, you're above your cost basis. You have your stop in, depending on where you put your stop, might have been stopped out with a profit, or it may be lower. If you're still in it and your support's down here at the 9, you're still in the money, okay? So you could put any stop in down here wherever you want based on how much money you want to make. You don't want to lose money. So that's the nice thing. You shouldn't lose any money on a stock like this when you got in at this point. You just use your stops, you just sell limits down at the bottom, and you can maintain what you maintain. Let's look at, we talked about Chewy yesterday. Resistance came up after 3 days of kind of sideways movement. These momentum stocks we've seen sideways up, and kind of playing with these resistance levels. It'll pop up a little after sideways and get rid of the resistance, but always use this as a guide, depending again where your cost basis is. Always have your stops in, unless you're investing in it, and you believe in it, and then you're not trading, you're investing. But on a trading chart, when you see resistance come up, it's certainly something to take note of. Okay, let's look at Rolls-Royce. That's one. Margaret, are you still in this one?
Nope, I got out.
Did you? Okay. Not probably a bad idea. You made probably some pretty good money on Rolls-Royce, and this came off of jet engines, and you're seeing a lot of, Boeing planes get ordered, especially in the Middle East. And the same thing happened at General Electric. General Electric makes aerospace jet engines, and you can see GE's running right up. And this one's, for a momentum stock, this is just nice. It's just right between support and resistance, and you come in, you get like, here's your sideways pattern, boom, hits support, starts rolling up again. Sideways pattern, almost hits support, rolls up again. So we're seeing that pattern continue, within these momentum stocks. Hold on here. Talked about APH yesterday. Again, the sideways patterns came down, actually got right at the, right below the 9, came back up, still rolling up. I think Paul talked about a weekly chart on this, and if you look at a weekly chart and it's done really well, it'd be a good investment from a weekly chart point of view. And it's been a good trade, as far as a momentum stock point of view too. So let me, I want to talk just a little bit about Bitcoin, because I think Joseph had a question on Bitcoin. I didn't quite get it, Joseph, but you were talking about um, how do you spend Bitcoin, or what is it for? And I'm not using Bitcoin as a currency. It's classified as a commodity from the SEC, so it's a digital commodity. And the reason that I like Bitcoin is more as a store of value, like gold. People have gold, except I can't. If I have $500,000 of gold, it's hard for me to store it. I have to store it at the paper storage. If I want to move it, I have to, move it. With Bitcoin and digital gold, as they call it, I can put it on a flash drive and take it with me wherever I go and change it into what currency I want to change it into. So, and the reason I do that, we talked a little bit about, devaluing of the dollar. And, if you have consumer inflation, which is what the Fed looks at, the cost of prices, then you have monetary inflation. Monetary inflation has to do with the money supply. And as the money supply gets bigger, because we're putting more dollars out into the system, because we're printing more dollars, that makes the cost of money, there's more money out there, which devalues the money. So technically, you got to get about 13% on your returns to even beat monetary inflation because of the money supply. And if you look, U.S. growth and the NASDAQ, as far as indices, that actually beat year over year that monetary inflation. Otherwise, you're kind of losing money. When you look at, over the time from 2011 to 24, you can see Bitcoin on average is 60% return. Okay, NASDAQ 117, and here's your monetary inflation. So if you're mid caps, US value, you're 9, 8.5, 7%. You think that's pretty good until you factor in the monetary inflation, at 13, 14%. That's what you got to make money. So that's why I like it as a store of value. I can put my fiat currency into Bitcoin. You can see annualized, over 4 years, you can see 60% return. This is since 2020. Magnificent 7 at 29% return, S&P 15. And so my fiat, my money, if I just kept it in a bank, I'm devaluing it because of my money, the value of my money goes down. You've all seen that chart where, it starts out, the dollar is actually $1, and now it's worth like 3 cents. So I can put it in Bitcoin. I can actually see my value increase, and I can take it out, sell it, put it into any fiat currency I want, whether it's the pound, whether it's the euro, whether it's the dollar, buy whatever I want, but I'm not losing the value over time. And you go and you look over the last 14 years, the best performing asset, except for 3 years out of 14, was Bitcoin as far as going higher. So that's me personally why I put it's better than a treasury bond, a bill for me. It's riskier, but you can see the results, and there's 3 years that where it was down, okay, and it was the bottom, but you had many years where it was the top leader. And so that's how I use Bitcoin, Joseph, is as a store of value for me. Is this even up?
No.
No, you're
well,
showing a chart.
you can see it.
No.
No, you can't.
Oh, hold on. Well, no wonder. Okay, I see that. I didn't stop that one. Sorry, guys. Jeez. Let me see if I can find this again. There we go. Man, I just went through the whole thing. I practiced it too. So I'll do it real quick again. If I can get this up. Okay, well, this will make more sense with the chart up. So again, this is monetary inflation. These are asset classes. You've got the US NASDAQ 100, growth, large cap. Monetary inflation is what we said is money supply. So the more money they put in, the less your dollar is worth. It's like anything, supply and demand. If there's only 3 Rolls Royces in the world, those become valuable because there's only 3. You have 100 million of them, they become less valuable because you have more choice. So over time, you can see over 14 years, the NASDAQ was at 17%. So you're beating monetary inflation, and the SPY is just getting you right at where monetary inflation is. So you're actually breaking even on that. Here's the Bitcoin chart. When you add Bitcoin in over 14 years, you get an average of 60% return. You can see against the Magnificent Seven, the S&P. This is why I put my fiat into this. Again, this is how I do it. And here's the chart I was telling you about the last 14 years that Bitcoin, up 1,300%, 217%, 5,500%. And then there was 3 years where it finished at the bottom. So it can be volatile. And if you look at it, it's almost every 4 years in this cycle that it's down. But for the rest of the time, it's been the best performing asset since 2011. And so I use it as a store of value, take my fiat currency, change it into Bitcoin. I can change it back to whatever currency that I want. So hopefully that makes more sense now that you've seen it with the charts instead of just me talking. So that's what I got. And I hope that made sense to you, Joseph. If not, we can talk about it a little later too. Sorry, Trent, took up too much of your time again.
All right, so I've come to this conclusion that markets are going to be really boring for a little while. And it has a lot to do with volatility and gamma being in more of a positive area. This is the VIX. We've talked about this before. And basically, the VIX is in the investable bucket. And historically, when it's in the investable bucket, volatility is suppressed because the mechanics behind how market makers use options and future contracts to hedge their books. Well, we're in this period of time, and we can see it in all the charts as Mark's pointing out. We're coming up against resistance, we're flattening out, we're going sideways kind of thing. And when you compare that to volatility, it's totally like in line with each other. They correlate with each other. When volatility expands, there's great opportunity for stocks to move higher or lower. And we saw that back in April when volatility expanded or exploded, really, and stocks went down. And then as volatility started to subside, stocks started going up, and that was exciting. And Mark had more swing trading opportunities. He had more opportunities to make, anywhere, 4% gains or bigger. Now volatility is being suppressed. And I would ask, Mark to give me some thoughts. If you go back, this is a weekly chart of the volatility index. If you go back at the start of 2024 and you look at volatility was really sort of steady up until February of this year, really March of this year, where February of this year, it exploded higher. And that's where you had more opportunities in swing trading ideas. You had more opportunities in stock trading ideas. But as volatility subsides, there's not as much. You don't get as much trading opportunities. Well, we're back into this period again where volatility is subsiding. Gamma is positive, which is actually a negative to volatility. And I think for most short-term or swing traders. And so until we see volatility starting to expand and moving what they call it implied volatility and getting that movement in stocks to begin to bounce around, we should anticipate that stocks are going to be really steady eddies, and you're going to see more charts every morning where you're up against resistance, you're up against that green line of death, and you're seeing that sort of starting to pull back overall. And I think that's where we are at today. Wanted to hit on silver real quick. You asked why is silver up? I just posted a link. I went on to Grok and asked what is the market saying about that, and it's saying there's less short selling against silver right now, so it's allowing silver to rise. The cost to borrow margin is continuously going up, so you're having less short selling, because when you short something, you have to borrow the stock to sell it and be short of it, and there is indications there's less of that happening, so it gives a possible boost to silver, and that's why we're seeing it there. I went on just this morning, I went on and I took Kerry's tell sheet, the 12 portfolio, and Mark's swing trading ideas this week. And I dumped them into Claude AI and I asked, give me 5 stocks that are going to go up, have a high probability of going up in the next 7 days. And it went through, took about, a couple minutes, and went through and gave me 5 stocks. And I'll share those with you today. The first one was NVIDIA. This is all AI driven. So it took the data from these charts and it gave me what it thought based on technicals, fundamentals, and a couple other things. It said NVIDIA in the next 7 days would be the leader of the 5 that could go up. When I look at a chart of it, I see resistance. We're right at where it closed yesterday pre-market. We're up against resistance levels that we've seen back in October of 24, right around January of this year, February of this year. Now we're back where those positions. So is this a potential setup for going higher, or are we going to, change, or are we going to, excuse me, retrace? Second one was Meta. Meta, similar scenario going back to January of this year. You see this sort of area where it's creating resistance level. We're back there again. It is up pre-market to 691.98. The second, IREN or Iris Energy, IREN Limited, was another one. It came up on the list. But when I look at this, I see resistance again. So what I'm seeing is resistance. What it's seeing, AI is seeing, is potential break higher against these resistance levels. And I think a lot of this has to do with that volatility level. If we're going to see these things break higher, we need to see their individual volatilities to expand to get an increase in the potential movement and move higher in these stocks. Carvana was the other one. When I look at Carvana, it looks like it's going to open up a buck, or roughly 40 cents higher today. It's had a hell of a run. The question is that run over with over the next 7 days? We'll see. But I thought it was interesting because Kerry talks a lot about AI, and it's like when you start to put more information into these large language models and you give them fundamentals and you give them technicals, and I'm going to actually add in, I just put up a gamma report explaining what gamma is and what gamma levels look like today and ranges look like today. I'm going to start piling this stuff into Claude and saying, give me your feedback based on my information and tell me what you think, what the top 5 stocks will be. And I think the more and more you do that, this is where AI, I think, becomes very powerful, because it's able to analyze data as long as you have the right questions to ask and the right prompts. And I encourage you all to experiment with this, because it's amazing what can come from it. The question is it right or is it wrong? Or is it neither? And I think that it needs to be determined. So these 5 stocks that I've shared with you here, Microsoft was the other one. Sorry, I forgot to add that. But Microsoft was the other one that I thought would go higher. And I put a link to the report, or not that report, but to a gamma report with options today in the chat. But right now, I'm looking at this market from a volatility standpoint, and as long as volatility continues to be suppressed, we're going to see more resistance levels. We're going to see lower action in the market, and it's, I think, going to get a little harder and harder to find good setups going forward. But also, a more of a floating upward as we saw in 2024, and just more unpredictable. I hate to say that, use that word, but predictable when it comes to markets going higher. So that's what I got for you today. Nothing really thrilling, in my opinion, is in the docket for today. So let's
I
open
think
up to
we're
the floor of questions and all that.
I think we're waiting for, jobs reports we're seeing. I just put it up on the chat, our initial jobless claims are up and you're seeing slowness maybe in the job market, and that's not going to be good. And I just have to comment on David Ludwig's picture behind him because that was our car tour he
I
put
wanted
up.
to add that too.
Yeah, so my car is in there somewhere way back towards the back on the left side. So drove a truck. So there were 450 cars in this rally last weekend. And it was a
Wow.
lot of fun. And David, thanks for putting that up. So he found that on Facebook,
You're
I
welcome.
guess. Yeah, that
It
was a
came
lot of
up on my
fun.
Facebook feed. So
Yeah, a lot of old cars. They had to be 30 years old or older to be in this rally. So it was fun. 600 miles. So anyway.
I bet every mechanic shop pulled up on the side of the road and said, "I can help you out if that thing breaks down." This is a
They break
moneymaker.
they break it into two groups of 200 and some cars each, and they have two trucks and two trailers that follow each group to pick up the pieces of anything that falls off. So
Oh my
they're
gosh.
very well organized organization, and they did a really good job, and we had a lot of fun. So
That's
it was
cool.
good. So Patrick, what's going on in Europe when any nuclear bombs go off, tactical nuclears
Nothing
yet?
like that. No, but they say now that the deep state was intimately involved, so it more than likely the CIA orchestrated it. But and MI5.
Do you like Tom Clancy books, by the way? I do personally, but yeah.
But there's one stock you should look at, Mark. It's called
Okay.
Autolus Therapeutics. AUTL. A for Apple, U for Unity, T for Tommy, L for Lima.
Okay. All right, let me take a look. I'll pull it up so everybody can see it, and I'm not just talking to myself. Okay. So what does this company do?
It's involved in therapeutic trials of clinical trials for certain drugs.
Okay.
And it's recently in stage 3 for some drug, some trial that has been successful.
Yep. I like what's going on. I don't try to buy outside the Bollinger Band. You can see it's starting to pull back in. We've had 1, 2, 3, 4, so we'll probably get back inside this Bollinger Band. But we got a nice trend up. Oscillators look pretty good. So it's a cheaper stock, $2, smaller stock, and it's an ADR for you in the United States means that you're not really buying the stock directly. You're buying an ADR, a depository receipt. So, but as far as trading, it's got nice volume down here, so you don't have to worry about the volume issues. And are they anything news besides their stage, whatever stage they're in this?
No, they've gone up. There's no other news. It's just that there's been a few. They've been approved for the further staging of this particular drug.
Okay.
So they're moving into the further.
Good morning.
Of it.
Okay.
I can get you more information if you like.
I want to look at your other one. There's the other one just kind of went sideways on
The
it.
sideways.
That was a nice run, but it kind of hit the green line of death here for a while.
Yeah.
And the 9 came right up too. So, but man, what a run you had on that one, Patrick.
Yeah. I could have made a lot of money, but that's how it goes.
You can't kick yourself by looking in the mirror. You got to go move forward and learn from everything. So,
Hey, Mark,
Yeah.
when you look at that chart and this resistance level, and as long as it's been at that resistance level, when does it become an accumulation period instead of a resistance period?
Well, when something makes it move one way or the other, and you look at, you look at the Bollinger Bands, and this isn't telling us it wants to go up much anymore. It's been sideways so long. Something of a catalyst needs to move this one way or another, and we haven't had any. And it could be as much as
If you look at the Bollinger Band there, it's beginning to squeeze. So
it is
maybe
squeezing.
there's something happening.
Yeah, what that means is our volatility, as far as is going down to it's getting smaller, and you can see why we're just moving sideways. When you move sideways, you'll see those Bollinger Bands, kind of come together. Because there's no volatility up or down. It's just sideways. And it'll be interesting to see, if this 9 comes down, because if the 9 comes down, you're going to see the price action follow with it. And we've had 2 days of coming down. But you do see it came up a couple times and it just hit where the sell orders were, but couldn't maintain any higher than that. So, this has been an interesting time with the tariffs and everything, and just the news driven market that has really screwed up some of the technical charts. But
Heavenly Father, I thank you.
it'll smooth out at some point once we get through all this tariff malarkey. So anyway, Margaret, what are you up to?
Oh, just raising my stops. I've got a good bunch this week.
Good.
Amgen, Churchill, GE, GEV. So I'm a happy camper.
Yeah.
Are you still in Rolls Royce?
No, I got out yesterday.
Good time. Good time, but watch it. It
Yeah.
can easily come back. But that GE and Rolls Royce, essentially, they do the same kind of thing.
Yeah, we looked at both
Yeah.
those charts.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so GE, jet engines basically. So that's a nice one just because it stays between support and resistance. I just like that. Here's your sideways, like we talked about yesterday, and it hit support and moved right back up.
So
So,
you sharing?
We're not showing the chart.
oh crap,
Oh,
you guys, I must be tired today. Yeah, here we go. This is GE, yeah. But right between support and resistance, here's our sideways like we looked at, before. And we saw that on GEV, up, sideways, back to support, up, sideways, over to support, up, and you see it again here. We're hitting, there is some sell orders on GEV a little bit at 502.50. So just be aware, if you're in that also. Let's look at UNH because we were talking
oh boy.
if that's done and see if that's done anything for us. Nope.
Do we have to?
Well, I mean, this is the kind of setup that you just got to wait and be patient and see what's happening. Again, look at this Bollinger Band just scream down. So again, that's because we're heading sideways. But at some point, the interesting thing to me though, Paul, is look at this support level, this intermediate support level is as strong as, this intermediate resistance level. Once it got down here and back up, it's going side. It's not really testing that on the bottom side. It's really been strong support, and it's above the 9 a little bit. We're just not getting the momentum. But look at the MACD is starting to pick up. So slowly and surely, we'll watch this to see if we can get an upper swing. But by that time, we'll have the Bollinger Band down. But again, you've got sell orders above the 20. So people have a little bit of faith that it's going to go up to around 334, which is $34. We'll see what happens, but
Mark, can you put that to the 5-year? I just pulled that up and it's pretty fascinating.
let's
Yep.
take a look.
You mean what kind of
Whoa.
correction?
No, do the 5-year.
This is 5-year. Oh, hold on. That's
On
2-year.
two.
That's 2-year. Sorry. Oh, wow. Yeah,
I mean,
look
it
at that.
goes straight down over here.
Yeah. It's come right down to where it was at, in 2020. And what happened in 2020? That was COVID. Right here's COVID, right here. Boom. Interesting, Margaret.
Yeah.
I guess that's where when I asked about the other one, Patrick's stock, and how it's going sideways for so long. Are the institutional buying this thing? And in this case, is it the same? Is it similar to the other one that you just United Healthcare? Is that an accumulation? Did institutions look at this and go, "This is an opportunity,"
Well,
at some point in the very near future. And in looking at stocks, looking for those big move opportunities, um, is this one of those signals that institutions are accumulating here?
that I don't know. Uh, I'm looking technically and I'm watching this, and United Health is a huge company. It had some issues, but what I like about it, Trent, is it's come down and hit this support level, and it has not really, other than these 2 days here,
Yeah.
hasn't really, been able to go any lower. So if we can start to see, and then look at this, look at the stochastic and the MACD are moving up. We just need some momentum. We just haven't had momentum to get anything moving. Once this momentum starts moving, if something starts kicking in and the institutions, either buy or it hits, the algorithm somehow, and some news story comes out, we could see it. We could see it go, but right now we're not. But it's something to
Yeah.
watch because there's a long way to go back up.
I mean, this is one you just,
You
if
wait.
if this has this is not going to go away. This company's not going away. It's a pretty
No,
integral part of the healthcare system.
absolutely.
Um, so is it a down the road incredible opportunity to accumulate shares at this level and build a position in it, and then at some point in the very near future it takes off?
Yeah, I wouldn't accumulate. I mean, I personally, on a technical basis, I wouldn't be an accumulator at this point.
Yeah.
On a technical basis. Now, maybe if you're fundamentally looking at that, like Kerry does, and he has something that he sees, I can see this being one news story away from a dump, based
Well, I guess going, probability of you look at that 5-year chart, that's where it started. That's a baseline. And you're right. I mean, you're taking the technicals out of it. Take the technicals, look at it from a fundamental standpoint. Is this a stock that is fairly valued at this point in time? And it was just a catalyst that brought it down.
well, for the last 9 or 10 days, it hasn't
It's
been able to go any lower. Something's holding it there.
yeah, yeah. I don't know.
So that,
It's more of I guess, a fundamental approach versus technical at this point.
and I think that's where you can kind of use both. If you wanted to be a long-term holder of United Health, I mean, we're under the 200, obviously. But you may have a good entry point here. I wouldn't pull the trigger for me personally at this moment yet, but you're
Yeah,
absolutely right. If you look at that pattern and you go back, the 5 years, I don't know how long it'll stay down here, but it can for a while. Those Bollingers may come down and squeeze and go sideways for a long time. We've seen that on a lot of stocks,
yeah,
and then something
yeah,
just needs to pop it. But this one's big enough and it's in enough index funds that you would think at some point we're going to see some movement. And the same with,
well,
I'm waiting for Berkshire too. I mean, Berkshire, since the shareholder meeting, has just been down. And look what
yeah,
happened last time. It came right down to the 200. We're starting to get close, and we'll see if it goes and does one of these 200 bounces again. But again, this is one I'm watching to see if we get a bounce and then roll back up. So those are.
something.
I'm seeing a lot of this, Trent, like you were just talking about. It's either up about, prices are up. You're either a momentum stock and you're shooting to the moon, or you're sitting at resistance, or you're heading down and you're sitting at support. And that's been that way for the last 2 weeks,
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where you take into account how impactful the whole derivatives market is, and how these stocks need volatility to go higher. The other
Right.
thing about this is, like United Healthcare, Berkshire, even all the Mag 7s, the biggest contributor to the market pretty much every 1st and 15th of the month in the United States is 401k inflows. And I
Yeah.
don't think until you see a mass decline in employment numbers and layoffs increasing, that continuous flow of money coming into this market and specifically, most people buy large cap growth. The Mag 7 are, the top 10 companies in the S&P 500 are in most large cap mutual funds. And so large cap growth mutual funds. And so you're going to continue to see money flow into these. It's just a matter of catalysts that would drive the S&P 500 in those top 10 stocks. So I look at this sort of period of time where you have this volatility suppression happening. You have all these stocks up against some level of resistance. And I'm like going, what would cause a massive breakdown in these stocks to go lower? Or have we already seen it? And what would cause the average, not the average, the individual from going into their HR department and saying, cancel all my continue my contributions to my 401k. And I mean like 50% of the United States quitting that. What would cause that? And I don't think there isn't, and short of a depression, I don't think there is anything. And that's where I look at this market and I go, as long as volatility is suppressed, you're just going to get this sort of bounce around. We need something, volatility expand, and we need positive or negative, something to move this market in one direction. I think there's going to be, honestly, I think there's more upside to this than downside. And as we get through the summer and all this tariff crap, we could see a pop going into the fourth quarter of this year and into next year at some time. And I think some of these formations are things to pay attention to as what is that institutional investor doing? Are they accumulating United Healthcare when you see patterns like you're seeing? Or are they, was it MELI? Are they accumulating there? Is there a catalyst? Is their business strong enough? Is there something bigger that's going to drive these things higher? And I think it's just a great opportunity to learn, like what when you're in a stagnant environment, how to find these companies that could be really gangbusters for us in the future.
Did you
So,
guys see Kerry stocks? Many of his stocks are like rocking now. Did you guys touch upon that? Because they're all AI. The AI narrative's more prevalent now because companies are showing how AI has been helping the efficiency or
yeah,
productivity or making them money. So now these like, Credo and Navitas and Applied and anything that's like AI related to that narrative is going up like crazy, So I don't know if you guys
yeah.
touched upon any of that. But that's happening, right? NVIDIA, you know, it's
NVIDIA
approaching.
is the sun to the earth.
It's the
you know,
Godfather, but it's the brand. You're not going to make a lot of money, in my opinion, Nvidia. You'll make it on all those tentacles on the outskirts,
Do you
like the
think
coral
You
weave.
think
Yeah.
you think Nvidia's down? You just said we wouldn't make
Um,
any money.
I no, what I say is you're not going to make big money. That's what I meant to say. You're not going to
Oh,
make,
okay.
I think it's okay place to be. I
I,
personally, I think there's bigger opportunities other places, but Nvidia is not a bad place to be.
I think you could make a career out of trading NVIDIA. I think it is what I said it last week, where the sun to the earth, it is the center of the universe, and what they're doing as a company and bringing other companies into their infrastructure, they're just they're just building a bigger foundation of this company. And when we get a expansion in money flow and availability of cheap money again, this is another, I think 200 on this stock is easy from here. But you're going to bounce around based on geopolitical and that kind of stuff. But I look at where we're at right now. I'm like, could go either way, but I think there's a higher opportunity here.
Can you put up
So,
STX? STX, is that it? I'm in a group with a few other folks that were traders, and they told me about this one a week ago, and I've been in it adding ever since.
What is it again?
Sam Texas X. Seagate Technologies.
Oh, Seagate. We've had this on our list before. Yeah.
Um,
Drive maker. storage maker. Yeah.
Yeah, storage maker for data storage technology.
Yeah. They used to supply us with disk drives for when I worked at Compact Computer. They were
Oh,
one of our
interesting.
big suppliers. Yeah. Them and Western Digital. So let's see what Western Digital's doing.
So that
They're
takes their
about to
stock
see
9 weeks on that
Yeah.
stock.
Western
Nine.
Digital, same thing. Yeah. And then
Western Digital.
there was a company called Connor
Hmm.
Peripherals that we utilized too. They've been bought up since, but yeah, yeah, these little storage stocks have been good. I haven't looked at Dell in a while. Is Dell doing anything?
They reported last week. I think they did okay. I think people are waiting
Kind of
for them to penetrate
sideways.
AI with the personal computer laptops.
Mhm.
That's the whole deal.
Broadcom, their earnings are today, so we'll see what happens
I'm
today
in
with
that.
Broadcom.
I'm scared. I'm in that.
You're scared. Don't be scared, Paul.
No, I'm just saying
Lululemon
I have a
reports
position.
today.
I've been in it for a while. I've been in it for at least a week,
Well,
if not two. So
so that's when you got to decide, is it a trade or is it an investment, and that's how you make your decision on that,
I,
I,
I
you
have
know,
a
there's
good, yeah, go ahead.
I've read a couple of stories where a lot of the bigger hedge funds and things, the big traders have moved out of NVIDIA, not always, but they've moved money out of NVIDIA and into Broadcom. I just read an article yesterday on that. So they
Yeah,
must see something in Broadcom that's going to be good.
I've heard the same thing. Perhaps a month ago, investors, big guys, move all NVIDIA and all into Broadcom. So
Yep, I heard that too.
the trend is certainly showing that. I mean, if you compare those two, Broadcom's
Here's Mike.
outperforming, and
Here's
that's what I
Micron.
mean. You rather
Yeah.
be in Broadcom than NVIDIA because it's trending much better.
Yeah, I know your money flows to where the value is, and NVIDIA will still be there because, like Trent said, all that money flows in from the 401ks, every week. Same with Microsoft and all the Mag 7. So, but yeah, you got to look for those little gems on the outside. And luckily, we're finding quite a few of them. So then it's just up to you guys on how you want to trade them. But it seems like, looking at the Discord and watching, everyone's doing pretty well. I know that. I think, no, that's not it. I was looking at the Discord and Payment had a stock, EME, he was asking about. And rightfully so, I see MK52 talked about the volume, which is right. The volume's pretty low on this stock. It's a pretty high price stock at 482. But it had a nice run too, but the volume's low. When you have lower volume stocks, you run into a spread between the bid and the ask. And if you have to get out of it, you might not have, it might not be 482.64 versus 482.65. It may be 482.62 versus, 399. And I'm just doing that I'm really exaggerating the distance of the spread, but it can be that way in low volume stocks. So just be careful of that for sure. Oh, well,
Look at gold real quick,
gold.
if you don't mind.
Nope, we had that up before, but we're going to do it again. GLD. What did you say about silver? You said it was
The short sellers are abandoning it. You're seeing less short request, the borrowing of shares of SLV. If you span out a little bit, like I'm looking at it from a 12-month kind of point of view,
this
just
is
look at
2 weeks.
where that view, sort of that basically that sort of channel it's in from its lowest, what is it, your 20 or 50? It's your 50
This is
up to where
50.
it's at. Yeah, going up towards towards middle of May. That's sort of your low point. There is that sort of, is this in a channel kind of thing.
I see, what I see though? I mean, look how nice and smooth these lines are going up. And then we
Yeah,
get up to this here, look at the chop. And that's what I
yeah,
call, kind of the market structure is kind of out of place because of this chop when you get a 6-month chart here. Yeah. Look how it's just, right next to each other, not many gaps. and then we get into the tariff thing and boom. So it's just chop. It's hard for me
Yeah.
to look at this chart. It looks like someone threw spaghetti on the wall to me on this one.
I think I see it a little differently than you.
Rice, maybe? Rice on the wall? What do you see?
I see
Brad?
it. I see accumulation. I look at the US dollar and all I see that continuously falling. If you look at DXY,
There's UUP.
you know, if you look at DXY,
This
it's
is
down again,
this is the
continue to
dollar.
fall.
This is the dollar index fund that you can trade.
The ETF, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And let's
we're
go back.
down.
Let's go look at this from a year ago. Let's see. Look at that.
Yeah. And if you overlaid what you had GLD there, if you overlay GLD on it, it's inverse of it. So as the dollar weakens, I think you're going to see more potential for gold to go higher.
This is GLD here.
Yeah.
And the same with Bitcoin. When the dollar goes down, you'll see Bitcoin rise too. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's just
I think, yeah, they're two safe haven assets
yeah.
that you're seeing
Interesting.
money flow into. Yeah.
Interesting, yeah.
It gives you a sort of a macroeconomic viewpoint of what's really happening with money and the view of how the world sees the US dollar and the US economy, really. So
I think the whole debt situation that's finally, I mean, we've been talking about it for a couple of years, the debt and how
yeah.
sustainable is that? And then we started talking about interest rates staying high. How can we keep them so high and try to pay off, or refinance our debt? And that's this quarter we're trying to do that with $4 to $6 trillion. It's definitely a situation, and it's not just a U.S. problem. It's a world problem. We're having debt everywhere, and a consumer problem. Where consumers are at all-time high debt too. Luckily, in this group, we're probably, because we educate ourselves a little more, we're probably doing better than the average citizen out there. And you guys take your money seriously, and you learn and you help each other, and that's what this whole forum's all about. So we're trying to help each other not lose money for sure.
Is anybody in
Yeah.
roadblocks? RBLX? Nope, nobody's in roadblocks.
We had it on the list this morning or this year.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, okay, just curious. That's a nice trender.
yeah, it kind of came up. Again, you're seeing a lot of these momentum stocks. I look at, if you want to look at,
One invite. Oh, it's now? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
this is the momentum, iShares momentum ETF. It looks at momentum stocks. You can see it's done the same thing, and this one has come up and it's kind of curving over, but the ETF that follows momentum stocks, which is interesting because you can go inside, and look this up and see which stocks are in this momentum ETF also. But we're starting to see a little bit of a rollover on these momentums, and we started seeing all this momentum, really take off with the whole tariff thing. That it's been amazing to watch, and we'll see if it reverts back to the norm, if we get through this. But who knows what's going to happen? Every day is an adventure in the market.
Yeah, I think
And
there's always something to learn.
there definitely is. There
yeah.
definitely is. Yeah. Never stop learning. Always look at patterns. Always go back and look at patterns. Look at past earnings. Look at past distributions. And make your own inferences on that.
Did
That's
anybody
all I
here watch
got.
Felix? Did
About
anybody
time.
watch
What
Felix?
you got, Julian?
It's about Julie. What do you
No.
got?
Mark, can we see MDB, MongoDB Inc. Corporation? They have an earning report yesterday, so they jumped like a $30 in the pre-market. And I know it's a momentum. It's MDB. Be like a beer.
MDB. Mongo.
It's
Mongo.
yeah, man.
Yeah, it's opened up right.
So
Nice open up,
My question.
nice big gap up.
They have an $1 earning per share yesterday. My question is, we are in 233 and we have the ERL in 253. So, which is the way that we have to think in that way?
But it's below the 200.
Yeah, 200's here, and then you got resistance here,
Resistance right above it.
and you got this huge gap now. So again, it's like, remember when we looked at this one, Urban came up and it hit, it went a little higher. Now it's back, sideways. So you got to watch chasing those. A lot of times these will revert to their mean. This one hasn't yet, but it's come up to resistance and it's pretty much, come back down underneath the 9. So a lot of that, momentum that you get up and people buying up here, the people who might have been in it down here said, well, crap, this is a home run. I'm going to take some profits, and then some of these people get stuck with a higher price, but we'll see what happens. But that's kind of what it reminds me of a little bit,
After that, we have this. Sorry.
What's that?
After that, we have this type of scenario, like an Navitas, like this stock. It's like the stock is moving sideways. So, which is the strategy that we need to think in that way? Like could be a pullback or it's a distribution stage. How we have to think in that way?
Well, it depends, like here's Navitas. Okay, it had a big gap up, and then went up to resistance, and now you see we're fighting that again. But it's came up, kind of stopped, and dropped back down. Here's some profit taking probably, and you got a big old candle here. Okay, and then climb back up with momentum and hit resistance again, and now we're lower again today. So, if you're in this and this happens, this is the best feeling in the world. And what you need to do is you need to follow your trading plan. And me personally, after doing this for so long and not getting out at least my principal out of something, if I hit a home run like this, I used to stay in, and then it ended up going back down. I wish I would have gotten out. I now personally would take at least my principal out or take half off, and enjoy my home run, and if you wanted to stay in, keep half in, or keep the whatever, play with the house money, instead of yours. Is how I kind of look at those stocks. And,
Hey, Mark.
Yeah,
We got to wrap it up.
okay.
Sorry. I had this.
Thank you, guys.
Cut everybody off, but I'm like,
See you guys tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, good luck out there, guys.
we'll see y'all later. Y'all take
Bye-bye.
care. Thanks again.
Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you.
Hi, Patrick.
Bye.
See you later, Patrick.